They say there's a house out there, past the old train tracks, where no one dares go after dark. Not because of ghosts or curses, but because those who enter don't come back. And if they do, they come back wrong. My name's Dr. Nathaniel Crow. I've spent most of my life dissecting the thin line between sanity and madness. But even I wasn't prepared for what I'd find behind those crumbling walls. It started with a patient, Michael Garrison, 26, no criminal record, no history of mental illness, a promising architect with a bright future, until the night he stepped into that house. When they brought him to me, his hair had turned a brittle white, his eyes empty, like twin glass marbles reflecting a storm no one else could see. He wouldn't speak except to whisper one name, over and over, Eleanor. No one knew who Eleanor was. He'd never mentioned that name before. No missing persons in town by that name. No connection. Nothing. That should have been my first warning. On the fifth night, he spoke a full sentence. They're in the walls. And then he laughed. A hollow, joyless sound that made the air in my office feel heavier. Curiosity is a curse, you see, and mine led me to the house. It wasn't marked on any official maps. The locals called it the Hollowing, a decaying Victorian manor shrouded in ivy and bad memories. Windows like blind eyes, a door that creaked open before I even touched it. Inside, the smell was the first thing. Damp, old wood, something metallic, and something worse. I called out. Silence. But the air wasn't still. It was watching. The walls were covered in old photographs. Faces I didn't recognize, or rather, faces I felt I should recognize but didn't. Their eyes seemed to follow me. And then, the floorboards began to hum. A sound like a heartbeat. I turned a corner and saw a mirror. Only my reflection lagged. Half a second too slow. It raised its hand after mine. Its eyes didn't blink when mine did. I stepped closer. It smiled. I did not. And then I heard it. A voice. Not in the room. Not in my head. Somewhere in between. Nathaniel. It knew my name. The house breathed. The walls shifted. A cold hand brushed my shoulder. Though I was alone, I ran out into the night, the house's laughter chasing me. But it didn't end there. Every night since, I wake at 3:03 a.m. to find the mirror in my room fogged from within. A single word scrawled in the mist. Eleanor. And behind my reflection, a shadow. Closer and closer. They say prisons hold the worst of humanity, but sometimes it's the place itself that's evil. I served 6 years inside Alcatraz. They tell you stories when you first arrive. About the whole solitary confinement in D Block. About men driven mad by darkness. But no one told me about cell 14. It was just an empty cell. Or so they claimed. I got thrown in there my second month after a fight in the yard. 2 days in complete darkness. Concrete walls that seemed to press closer the longer you sat there. First night, I heard it. A scratch. Faint like a nail against stone. I told myself it was rats. Second night, a voice. At first, it was just a wordless murmur. Then it grew clearer. Get out. I shouted back, but no one answered. Then something moved in the corner. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. A cold presence, heavier than the air, pressing down on my chest. My skin crawled. The cell smelled of salt water and something rotten. Then came the knocking. 3 sharp knocks on the wall behind me. I knocked back. 3 more. And then, a whisper by my ear. Too late. I screamed. Guards found me unconscious, bloodied nails from clawing at the stone walls. They moved me to the infirmary. Said I'd lost my mind. But I wasn't the first. There was a log. A thick, dust-covered book in the warden's office. I stole a glance at it weeks later. Names. Dates. Cell 14. All marked with the same note, unfit for general population. Transferred. Deceased. Missing. One name stood out. Eleanor Crow. The same Eleanor from the man in the other story. A woman imprisoned in the 1930s. Disappeared from her locked cell one stormy night. Left behind a wall scrawled with blood. There in the walls. I left Alcatraz, but it never left me. Even now, at night, the knocking returns. 3 knocks. Then the voice. And sometimes, in the dark, I catch a scent of salt water and something rotten. I don't answer anymore, because I know it's never over. They say a photograph captures a moment, but some moments should never be kept. I was always a collector of strange things. Old books, forgotten trinkets, cursed objects, or so the stories claimed. But nothing like the camera. I found it in a flea market outside an abandoned church in Vermont. A 1930s Kodak, the kind you crank by hand. The vendor was a blind man. He didn't speak, just held it out to me, trembling. "I don't want your money," he rasped. "Just don't use it." Naturally, I took it. Back at home, curiosity gnawed at me. I loaded it with film, pointed it at the mirror, and snapped a picture. The photo developed darker than it should have. The reflection wasn't mine. It was a tall, pale figure standing behind me, featureless face, long black coat. No one was there when I took it. I told myself it was a flaw, an old, cursed camera trick. But it didn't stop. Each photo I took, the figure got closer. At first across the street, then by the window, then at the foot of my bed. People I photographed began to change. Emma, my neighbor, smiled in one picture, and when I showed it to her, her nose started bleeding. She collapsed, whispering a single word before she died. Return. I threw the camera in the river that night, but it came back. 2 days later, it sat waiting on my doorstep, dry as bone. A note was attached. "You took its place." And that's when I understood. The camera didn't trap images. It trapped souls. And each time you used it, you traded a piece of yourself. I don't take pictures anymore. But sometimes, when the lights flicker, I catch a flash of white light. And in that split second, in the corner of the room, it's still there. They say strange things happen when you keep broken things too close. A cursed camera, a silent visitor in the dark. It makes you wonder how many other stories are out there. How many cursed objects, how many things we bring into our homes thinking they're harmless. Some doors, once opened, never truly close. And if you're hearing this now, if you're alone, you might want to check behind you. Because sometimes stories find their way to you, even when you don't want them to. Good night.